The gods called it victory, but the heavens knew it as silence. The world had never been so still. After the fall of the Forbidden One, the stars themselves seemed to dim, as though afraid to shine too brightly and draw the attention of what remained buried beneath the earth. The echoes of that war lingered, vibrating through the very fabric of creation. Once the gods had stood united, wielding the weapons created by the orb of creation to mold reality itself. But that same power had nearly undone them. The Forbidden One, the anti-creator, had turned their gift into a weapon, making and twisting its twin, the orb of anti-creation, into a force capable of unraveling existence. It was only through the intervention of the primordial enforcer that the anti-creator had been sealed away. But the price was steep. The enforcer, a being whose very presence bent the cosmos, had vanished, expending every ounce of his power to create the seal. For the anti-creator, the Forbidden One cannot be killed. It is a force of the universe, and a counterpart of the creator gods for killing it will mean the loss of balance. This is why the divine intelligence, the Source, had created the primordial enforcer, the only being capable of creating seals to seal the anti-creator or the creator gods if they disrupted the balance of the omniverse. The gods had not celebrated that day. They had scattered the 3 fragments of the orb of anti-creation across the multiverse, hiding them in places so secret that even they dared not remember their locations. It was an act of desperation, not triumph. And though they spoke of the Forbidden One as dead, the old gods knew better. What is sealed was not destroyed. It was Orunmila who had voiced what others feared to say aloud. Standing before the divine council, surrounded by gods who wore their arrogance like armor, he spoke of shadows that would one day rise again. Orunmila's voice had echoed across the chamber, calm but laced with unshakable authority. Mark my words, for they are carved into the bones of fate itself. When the avatar of the primordial enforcer awakens and claims the fire within, the heavens shall tremble and the seal shall weaken. When the lost pieces of the forbidden orb are brought together, the shadows will stir, and the one who sits below the heavens shall rise from his cage. Doom shall stretch its hand across the multiverse, and the gods shall know fear, for not even they can stand against the Unmaker. Only light born of storms can quell the darkness, but with it comes fire that cannot be tamed. The gods had not spoken at first. Fear had stilled their tongues, their divine power unable to shield them from the weight of Orunmila's words. But pride had returned quickly, as it always did. "The enforcer is gone," one had said, his voice sharp with denial. "Spent, burned out. Even if this prophecy is true, there is no one left to stand against the Unmaker." "The orb is broken," another added. "Its pieces scattered. It can never be reforged." Orunmila had met their objections with silence. Only when their bickering subsided did he speak again. "Do not let arrogance blind you. The enforcer may be gone, but his spirit remains. One day it will rise again, not in the form you expect, but as a storm hidden in a god." His words had divided the gods. Some dismissed them as riddles, while others whispered of doom and chaos, but none could shake the unease that followed. And so they had buried the truth beneath their own doubts, clinging to the illusion of safety. Centuries later, those words found new life, not in the halls of gods, but in the ruins of the forgotten planet. Obanor, now 21, stood before the trickster, his muscles taut from endless training. Sweat glistened on his skin, and his sharp eyes searched his master's face for answers. "You always speak of power," Obanor said, his voice steady but edged with frustration. "We already have 2 pieces of the orb. Why do we need more? Why steal from the gods when we've already weakened them?" The trickster's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. This was the question he had waited for. He stepped closer, his voice smooth as silk. "Because the gods are not as weak as you think," he said, "and we are not ready, not yet. Obanor crossed his arms, his expression skeptical. "What are you afraid of?" "Afraid?" The trickster's smile twisted. "No, Obanor. I do not fear the gods. I fear what lies beneath them. Let me tell you of the prophecy." He repeated Orunmila's words, but where the god of fate had spoken with reverence, the trickster spoke with venom. When the avatar of the enforcer awakens, the gods will seek to seize his power. They will bring together the fragments of the orb, not to protect the realms, but to steal its strength for themselves. And when they do, they will unleash the Forbidden One. The gods will not stop it, they will bow to it. Obanor's brow furrowed. "You're saying the gods want this?" The trickster placed a hand on Obanor's shoulder, his eyes gleaming with feigned sincerity. "They are cowards, Obanor. Greedy, selfish cowards who hoard power and call it balance. They see you as a threat because you are stronger than they will ever be. That is why they killed your parents. That is why they will come for you." Obanor's fists clenched, raw energy crackling around him. "Then we'll stop them." The trickster's smile widened. "Yes, and with your power, we will ensure they never rise again." Outside, the ground trembled as distant thunder rolled across the desolate sky. The boy's heart burned with purpose, but the storm within him was still untamed. And as the gods prepared for war, neither they nor the boy knew the truth hidden in Orunmila's words, that the storm was not only their weapon, but their reckoning. The trickster sat alone in the dimly lit chamber, his slender fingers tracing the edges of the dark, pulsating cube resting on the stone altar. The air around it felt heavier, darker, as though the cube was breathing. Tendrils of black smoke seeped from its surface, twisting and writhing as if alive. The trickster's eyes gleamed, not with triumph, but with obsession. The whispers had started the moment he first touched it. The promises, the visions, the lies that felt like truth. At first he had resisted, dismissing the voice as a phantom born of his hatred. But the whispers grew stronger, weaving into his thoughts like vines. They spoke his name, knew his secrets, and whispered what he longed to hear. "Power," the voice had said, "enough to crush the gods and make them kneel." And he had listened. Now, as the shadows pulsed around him, the voice returned, smooth and commanding. "You are chosen, trickster. You are the vessel through which I will rise again. Together, we will reshape this broken world." The trickster closed his eyes, his breathing quickening. "Why should I trust that you will give me what I want?" he whispered, his voice trembling despite himself. The cube flared and the shadows rippled. "Because you know what they did to you. How they cast you out, humiliated you, stripped you of your glory. Do they not deserve to fall? Do you not deserve retribution? I guided you on how to find the 2 fragments of the orb of anti-creation, did I not? With those 2 alone, you acquired incredible power, and even created beings capable of stealing divinity. Now imagine the power you will gain when we recover the last fragment." Images flashed in the trickster's mind, the divine council laughing, Amadioha's thunderous judgment ringing out as the trickster was cast down. Rage flared in his chest, and his fingers dug into the altar. "Yes," he hissed, "they deserve to burn." The voice grew stronger, feeding on his hatred. "Then listen, there is one who stands between you and their ruin. The avatar of the enforcer. He is the key. Destroy him, and the gods will crumble." The trickster's eyes narrowed. He had always suspected there was more to Amadioha than raw power. Now he knew, and yet the voice's promises tasted bitter. He clenched his fists, pushing away the flicker of doubt. "First, we gather power," he said, his voice steady once more. "And then, we finish what the gods started." Hours later, Obanor stood before the trickster, his arms crossed as the older man paced the room. The faint glow of the cube illuminated their faces, casting sharp shadows that danced across the walls. "You've trained me for years," Obanor said, breaking the silence, "pushed me harder than any mortal could withstand. But no matter how strong I become, you say it's not enough. Why? The trickster stopped, his eyes locking onto Obanor's. Because strength alone won't stop what's coming also. You are not just a mortal. You are a demigod. Do not ever forget that, he said. Sit, listen, sit. Obanor hesitated but obeyed, lowering himself to the cold stone floor. The trickster knelt beside him, his voice dropping to a near whisper. You know the being in the prophecy, a warning left behind by the gods themselves. It speaks of unbelievable chaos, of destruction beyond imagination. And at the center of it is the being so powerful, so uncontrollable, that even the creator gods feared it. Obanor's brow furrowed. What kind of being? The trickster's lips curled into a bitter smile. One who cannot be tamed. One who commands the shadows and darkness. The gods sealed it away, but they left behind the pieces of its power, the fragments of the orb of anti-creation. And you think the gods want to use them? Obanor asked, suspicion creeping into his voice. The trickster nodded. Not to stop it, but to become it. To steal its power and make themselves untouchable. That's why we need to act first. To stop them before they tear the multiverse apart. Obanor's fists clenched. Then we fight. Yes, the trickster said, placing a hand on Obanor's shoulder. We fight and we win. But make no mistake. This isn't just about the gods. It's about you. You're stronger than they are, smarter. And when this war is over, you will not only survive, you will rule. Obanor's eyes burned with resolve. The trickster smiled, but the shadows flickering in his eyes betrayed his true thoughts. Soon, he mused silently, soon, even you will kneel. Far away in the mortal realm, Ogun and Ikenga stood at the edge of a ravaged forest. The ground was scorched, the trees reduced to twisted, blackened husks. The air reeked of ash and something darker, something unnatural. Ogun knelt, running his fingers through the dirt. The energy is still here, he said, his voice low. Whatever did this wasn't mortal. Ikenga stood nearby, his arms crossed. It wasn't just power, it was precision. These creatures didn't attack, they extracted. The two gods exchanged a look, unspoken thoughts passing between them. They had fought countless battles, faced horrors beyond mortal comprehension. But this was different. They found the god whose power had been taken, huddled beneath the ruins of a shrine. His once golden skin had turned dull, and his eyes were empty, hollow. He clutched at the earth, trembling. They came from the shadows, he rasped. I tried to fight. I couldn't stop them. They took everything. His voice broke, and tears fell silently. Ogun's jaw tightened, but it was Ikenga who knelt beside the fallen god. We will find them, he said, and we will make them pay. The fallen god looked up, his eyes pleading. You don't understand. You can't stop them. You can't fight shadows. The words hung heavy in the air as Ogun and Ikenga turned to leave, their determination masking the unease clawing at their thoughts. Who is the primordial enforcer? What power did he wield that even the gods could not contain? And what price did he pay to seal the anti-creator? These are the questions that haunt the gods and now echo through the hearts of men. To find the answers, we must return to the beginning, before gods ruled, before mortals walked, to the time when the universe was still unshaped.